at the International Community School. This is my family. My wife is from the Philippines. We've been married almost 10 years now. We met here in Thailand at church. And then all three of our children are born here. This is Jenny. She's in 2nd grade now. She's 7 years old. And Caroline just started a four-year-old kindergarten class. And CJ has just turned 3 years old. So that's where a lot of my time and energy goes when I'm not teaching. And this is the school. It's pretty close to this campus. If you know where the Nation building is on Bangla Trot, it's about a bird's eye view just straight across on the other side of Bangla Trot, near an area called Parkland. I had taught for 4 years in a high school, and this is my 8th year teaching in the ESL program at ICS. So there were 2 terms I wanted to talk about first, just so we're on the same page about what I'm introducing today. Segmental, the inventory of vowels and consonants. And suprasegmental, unique features that transcend the segmental level and extend over more than one sound segment. So here we're talking about word stress or sentence stress, the rhythm and intonation of the language. In the book, Teaching Pronunciation, the authors are pointing out that the communicative approach to pronunciation remains the current dominant language teaching style. And the goal of teaching pronunciation is not to make the learners sound like native speakers, but that pronunciation does not detract from communication. So that's where we're approaching from, using language and pronunciation, not necessarily with the segmental and trying to get each part of a word to sound right, but trying to focus on at the word level and the sentence level, and using activities at that level to improve pronunciation. The rationale is using suprasegmental pronunciation activities improves comprehensibility, and it also reduces learner frustration as well as affecting a greater change in a shorter time. So the first part is using songs, chants, and nursery rhymes. Now I'll mention these. How many people are working with elementary students? Can you see? Raise your hand. And then how many are working with secondary students? So it looks about, or both. It looks about half and half. The good thing is these activities can be applied across for young learners and older learners. It just happens that for this presentation, I'll be using all the examples for young learners because this year I'm teaching grades 1, 3, and 5. And in the ESL program, we use a literature-based approach. So we try to take the ESL techniques, but we use literature as the basis to draw the different activities from. So that's what I'm going to be showing you how 3 activities are used in the classroom in a literature-based program. But the activities, you can fit the material to whatever language you're teaching or to whatever grade level you're teaching. But try not to feel inhibited right now. We're going to be working with young learner material, and a good place to start when you're not sure where young learners are at is with nursery rhymes, because they usually come with songs and have storylines, and you can interact with plays and skits and that sort of thing as well. So that's what we'll start off with. The rationale for using these is the activities appeal to different learning styles, such as oral and kinesthetic. Students will independently perform sentence, stress, and intonation patterns in a song and jazz chants. Who has heard of using jazz chants before? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. Yeah, jazz chants is a series of short thematic phrases, or not quite songs, but chants put to rhythm to practice different speech patterns. I'll show you an example. Okay, and also students will be able to understand the vocabulary used in the chants or the songs. So here we have Jack and Jill. So I want to go ahead and just show you some motions to go along with it, and please, again, don't feel inhibited, but I'd like you to try the motions just so you have a sense of what the learners will be going through as well. So let me introduce it to you. We have Jack, let's see your thumbs. Jack and Jill went up the hill. So here we're forming the hill. To fetch a pail of water. So this is the shape to make a bucket or a pail. And again, you're introducing the vocabulary and the idea for water. Sometimes teachers use that if they don't want students to always raise their hand if they have to go to the bathroom or get a drink of water. Okay. Jack fell down. Kind of limp your body. The kids love to fall on the ground, but we'll just limp down. And broke his crown. You have a headache. You broke your crown. And Jill came tumbling after. Jack and Jill, Jack and Jill, All right, good, you got it. Let's try it all together. Here we go. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Jack and Jill, Jack and Jill, All right, you got it. Again, with music, it will reinforce. Kids will want to spontaneously sing, and they'll be going over these patterns. Now, another thing we can do with this, we want to keep the same stress patterns for the sentences, but we can change the vocabulary to build upon this vocabulary. So we have. Here we have some of my students perform. So they did a Jack and Jill, and up the hill. These are our grade 1 students. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. So here it got a little bit off from the, but you can maybe make out you have hill and then valley, a pail and a torch. This was water and fire, broke, fixed, fell down, and got up. So with just changing the names, we can add these concepts in and sing the same pattern, but have the new vocabulary. So we have like this. Sam and Sally went down the valley. So we have our opposite Jill, valley. Instead of to fetch a pail of water, you have to give a torch. Here's your torch of fire. There's your fire. So we have Sam and Sally went down the valley to give a torch of fire. Instead of Jack fell down, we have Sally got up and fixed her shoe. So we had Jack broke his crown, Sally got up, fixed her shoe, and in the other one, Jill comes tumbling after. But here, Sam left home before her. But Sam left home before her. So everything's opposite, but it's tied in with the music that they had before. So they're learning the opposite words here. So let's try this one. Sam and Sally went down the valley to give a torch of fire. Sally got up and fixed her shoes, but Sam left home before her. Sam and Sally, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sally, yeah, yeah, yeah. As kids love when you throw in some kind of activity to spice it up. So that's an example of using a song or a nursery rhyme. Here my students, they have Sam and Sally went down the valley to give a torch of fire. Sally got up and fixed her shoe, but Sam left home before her. Okay, now this is an example of a grammar chant or jazz chant, and if you see the materials, they're sometimes grouped around grammar activities or around different themes. And my suggestion would be if you're doing something like literature-based, you can pull out ones that would fit the theme of your story. When I was talking with my coworker, she said she was turned off to jazz chants because when she heard the tape, it would sound a little bit corny and a little bit slow. So some sound fun and some don't, but you can use the tape or not use the tape to make it fit. So here I found one that's talking about greeting someone, asking about mutual friends. And then what we have is two speakers or two groups. And actually I'll go ahead and divide these two tables, and the people sitting in the chairs in the back will be one group, and then these three tables will be the other group. So we'll go through it all together first, and then we're going to divide up. This will be group one, and this will be group two, and group one will do these lines, and group two will do the indented lines. Okay? But let's do it all together first. So I'll set a rhythm for us. And again, we're trying to go for the flow, not really how you pronounce each word, but the phrases. Okay? So it's like this. Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? I'm fine. How's Bill? He's fine. How's Mary? She's fine. How are the children? They're fine. How's your school? It's fine. How's Jack? He's sick. Oh no. Okay, and Jack had the accident with Jill, so it's tied in with introducing that story. Okay, so let's try dividing up into groups. Group one will do the ones on the far left, and then group two will do the indented ones. Okay, 2, 3. Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? I'm fine. How's Bill? He's fine. How's Mary? She's fine. How are the children? They're fine. How's your school? It's fine. How's Jack? He's sick. Oh no! Good job. Okay, we'll switch it around. Group two, we'll start this time. One more time. Ready? Go. Hi, how are you? Fine. How are you? I'm fine. How's Bill? He's fine. How's Mary? She's fine. How are the children? They're fine. How's your school? It's fine. How's Jack? He's sick. Oh no! So these are activities that the kids will also spontaneously start picking up on at different times. But they're practicing, but it doesn't feel like work to them. Another one that we could introduce. So this is from Jack's perspective. I feel terrible. So it goes like this. I'll go ahead and say it through, and then we'll try it together. I've got a headache. I've got a headache. I don't want to go to bed. I've got a fever. I've got a fever. I don't want to do my homework. I've got a toothache. I've got a toothache. I don't want to eat my lunch. Every time I get a headache, Mama takes me to the doctor. Every time I get a fever, Mama takes me to the nurse. Every time I get a toothache, Mama takes me to the dentist. Every time I see the dentist, I always come home feeling worse. Okay? So there's a lot of vocabulary we can be introducing. And again, this is something we'll do as warm-up activity. You don't want to overdo it. Anything like salt or pepper you can overdo. So you wouldn't want to make this the whole lesson for the day. But if you do like a 5-minute warm-up activity with something like this, they're getting a chance for everyone to speak in the room. sometimes in the larger class, not all the students get a chance to have a turn and stuff, or some are shy or don't want to, but this way they can still participate and be practicing some of their language skills. So let's go ahead and try this just to see how it feels. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I've got a headache. I've got a headache. I don't want to go to bed. I've got a fever. I've got a fever. I don't want to do my homework. I've got a toothache. I've got a toothache. I don't want to eat my lunch. Every time I get a headache, Mama takes me to the doctor. Every time I get a fever, Mama takes me to the nurse. Every time I get a toothache, Mama takes me to the dentist. Every time I see the dentist, I always come home feeling worse. So you'll hear when you're speaking at more a natural speaking pace, you don't really wouldn't necessarily say, I've got a toothache. I've got. It's more like, I got a toothache. It kind of gets slurred together. So it's a good chance to practice, again, how you would speak more in a conversation as opposed to breaking it down for each separate sound. Do I have any questions at this point for the first activity? Yes?
I'm just curious if these exist in other languages already. Do you know anything?
Yeah.
English?
I'm not sure. I don't think that, I'm not sure. Let me just put it at that. But it would be something that you could either take these and translate, if it would work across, or take a look. On the handout, I'll have the person's name and the reference so you can see if others have already done the work for you, already adapted it to a language you want to use. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, the second activity is called Talking Hands and Drills. And the idea is there are some tribes or some groups where they had to communicate over long distances, and then they'd use drums, and you'd hear what the message was. So you're not hearing the words, but you're still getting the message. So that's the idea behind it. We're looking for how the speech or the pattern has a rhythm and a stress pattern to it. And sometimes it's hard to notice when we're, again, looking at just parts of a word. And sometimes it's hard to notice when we're even practicing the phrases. But this idea is for some phrases and words, you introduce the rhythm first, and then when you introduce the word, the students already have an idea of where the stress is going to go in the word or the pattern, and you can help them count out syllables, so when they practice saying the word, they can say it a little bit more naturally, and they have a better feel for how it's supposed to be spoken. This idea comes from a book called Pronunciation by Clement Leroy. Students will recognize rhythm, internalize rhythm of simple utterances, and associate rhythm with meaning. So we have like this. And one suggestion I would make, I was trying how do you teach, especially younger kids, to make a different volume in their clapping. And one thing I tried doing like knuckles like this, but it hurts the other way or something. One thing that works, if you make a fist with one hand and open palm in the other hand and hit, go ahead and do that. Hit together. So that'll be for the softer clap sound. And when you want the louder clap sound, you use your two palms together. So we have this soft clap, loud clap. here we have some together. So you can introduce, and again, the content will depend on your age, the age level of your students. You can start simple, and then I'll show you in just a moment how I would use a book and then pull out repeated phrases from the book to enforce different content. So let's try this. I'll play one, and you tell me what number.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Okay. Wonderful. I feel terrible. Okay.
Good morning.
Good. So, one game you can make from this, you have this on the board, and then you have the different patterns on strips of paper, and then call the students up one by one, and let them try the pattern, and then their classmates try to guess what pattern. And one thing you could do would be you divide the group up, and then one person brings up a drummer, and they play. You give them one of the patterns, they play it. Let's just try it. Pat, will you come volunteer? Pat's my supervisor at the school, so she can't say no. Okay, so this is her team. Now, she only gets one chance to get the pattern, and you get one chance to guess what it is. If you miss it, the other team gets one chance to guess what the pattern was. But if you get it, you get a point for your team. And then it's this person's. Okay? Okay, what was it?
1.
Good. Okay, so I put one point for that team. Okay, go ahead and have a seat. And someone from this team. Nate? Nate's my co-worker too. They work in the secondary and I work in the elementary. All right. Okay, what's the answer? Good. Goodbye. So you get a point for your team. So, again, it seems simple, but we're just doing it simple to get a feel for what you would do for your students. And they love it. They love playing these games. That's why I'd also suggest keep something simple, because it is challenging for some students. So you want some that will be more difficult, some that are simple, so everyone can have some success at this.
You know, I'm just thinking of the connection to the secondary kids. With this, there are some words that's really difficult to understand what the kids are saying, such as photograph, or, where they just get the stress in the wrong place, and it makes them very difficult to understand. So something as simple as this could maybe help the kids figure out the stress or remember the stress.
Thanks. One example was in the book that my grade ones are reading, they had the word abuelita, a Spanish word for grandma or grandmother. And so that's how I introduced it first. Did that first because they saw the word in their book. They had their reading books. So they're saying, "How do you pronounce that?" I said, "Okay, let's listen to this. You try it with me. Go ahead, you try it." So how many syllables do we have? 4 syllables. So if you think about that and try it. So again, that was one way introducing just like what you're saying. Yes?
Do you ever use this for, like, to improve the speed with which they talk? So you have, like, I don't know, competitions between students as fast as they can?
I haven't tried it, but yeah, you could if they're slowing down where they do need to speed things up. Yeah, it's open. You can really experiment with a lot of different activities and focus what you want to. Let me show you how. This is a story called The Doorbell Rang by Pat Hutchins, and let's just go through it. I've made some. I've made some cookies for tea, said Mom. Good, said Victoria and Sam. We're starving. Share them between yourselves, said Mom. I made plenty. That's 6 each, said Sam and Victoria. They look as good as Grandma's, said Victoria. They smell as good as Grandma's, said Sam. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Mom as the doorbell rang. It was Tom and Hannah from next door. Come in, said Mom. You can share the cookies. That's 3 each, said Sam and Victoria. They smell as good as your grandma's, said Tom. And look as good, said Hannah. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Mom as the doorbell rang. It was Peter and his little brother. Come in, said Mom. You can share the cookies. That's 2 each, said Victoria and Sam. They look as good as your grandma's, said Peter, and smell as good. Nobody makes cookies like Grandma, said Mom as the doorbell rang. It was Joy and Simon with their 4 cousins. Come in, said Mom. You can share the cookies. That's 1 each, said Sam and Victoria. They smell as good as your grandma, said Joy, and look as good, said Simon. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Mom as the doorbell rang. And rang. And then, now, I won't go this fast with the kids, but then you can say, well, what are they going to do? It presents a problem. They don't have enough cookies, someone else is coming, so you can talk about what kind of choices do they have at this point. Oh dear, said Mom as the children stared at the cookies on their plate. Perhaps you better eat them before we open the door. We'll wait, said Sam. And then you talk about, what would you do? That's one choice. They could eat it or they could wait. 2 choices. It was Grandma with an enormous tray of cookies. How nice to have so many friends to share them with, said Grandma. It's a good thing I made a lot. And no one makes cookies like Grandma, said Mom as the doorbell rang. So, I went through, the nice thing about children's literature, there's often phrases that are repeated many times, and those are phrases you can be practicing with the students. So here, we can try some of these. And also, a fun thing, I'm going to have you use your hands, but I'm going to use a small drum and a loud drum, like this. So we're doing small clap and loud clap. Okay, so you play along, we'll try number 1. I broke it up. We did introduction phrases one day, and the next day we read the story and then tried these. And here you can see, this is when I introduced the story, taught them the rhythms, and then I played the drum for them and they practiced their hands. And then again, you call them up one by one to take a turn. You show them one of the patterns for them to try, and then the class tries to guess, and they love playing something like this, the drums in class. And you know, it's, yeah, again, if someone's challenged with it, you have some simple ones in there too, but they love it, you know, and then you play the same kind of game. They play the pattern for their team and try to guess it, and everyone has a turn. Another activity, and again, this would take more of a class period to introduce it, but then you reinforce it in small segments throughout the weeks after. So here's some of the students trying the different phrases. And then another day, I pulled out the drum and I borrowed some egg shakers from the music teacher, and then had one person playing drums, and one person speaking and clapping the rhythm, and another person doing the egg shaker. So you can give, you know, 2 people egg shakers, 2 people clapping, and then after you do the phrase, everyone passes what they have to the left. So everyone has a turn, and you can have them choose which one. You have the list on your board of 6 patterns. Okay, which one do you want to do, Chun? And then you'll pick number 4. Okay, play it. You play it, and then so it gives everyone a chance to try 3 different ways of doing the patterns. And the egg shaker, it's hard to get the dynamics to hear the loud and soft. So I just kind of show them, okay, for soft, do it low, for loud, do it high. But what that helps me as a teacher, I don't hear all the noise at once. I can hear the drummer mainly, and I can make sure that one student is getting the idea, but everyone's practicing and participating. Okay, and then another idea from the chants, running with the theme about cookies, and we just did the story, and there's one like this, where you can get, not necessarily a group this size, you might want to divide it up into smaller groups, but here's another activity where you have one speaker, you call out their name, and they're the ones that start interacting with the rest of the class. And when they finish that interaction, they get to choose who the next person is. So let me show it to you first. Who took the cookie from the cookie jar? Richard took the cookie from the cookie jar. Who, me? Yes, you. Couldn't be. Then who? And then Richard gets to say someone in the group. Jenny. Okay, we're going to use Jenny's name. Who took the cookie from the cookie jar? Jenny took the cookie from the cookie jar. Who, me? Yes, you. Couldn't be. Then who? Okay, is there anyone who would volunteer their name? We got 2 volunteers. Great. So, your name? Ali? Annie, sorry. Annie? Emily? Okay, so Annie, you're going to call, Emily's going to be your next person. So we'll start with Annie. Emily.
I'm struggling.
Emily took the cookie from the cage. Okay, Emily, why don't you start off? We're going to start with you, and you call out Annie's name, okay? So when we all do it together, and Emily's going to be the one to say, who, me? Could it be? And then she'll call out Annie's name, okay? Let's try it all together. Here we go. Ready, go. Who took the cookie from the cookie jar? Emily took the cookie from the cookie jar.
Who?
Yes,
Who could?
then who? Good.
Who?
Annie took the cookie from the
Who, me?
Yes,
Couldn't be.
then who?
Sally took the cookie from the cookie jar.
Sally took the cookie from the cookie jar.
Me?
Yes,
Couldn't be.
then who? Good. So you get the idea. Everyone get a chance to have a turn being by themselves, but also being in the group. Are there any questions about using something like this? Okay. Here's my commercial break right now. This is something called a fluency phone, and it's in this book, 6+1 Traits of Writing. And the idea is it gives students a chance to hear themselves reading or speaking when they're maybe in a group this size. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and pass some around, and I want you to try it out. And when you're talking to it, you can hear yourself very clearly. You'll be amazed. And you can hear the ocean too. But in a group like this, and younger children love it. It really encourages them to practice their reading. They finish their work and they say, "Can I read now? Can I read?" And I say, "Sure, go ahead." So let me pass out some of these. And just take turns. Actually, can you pass it to the back table there? To that table there. And you keep one yourself at that table. And you can pass it to that. And keep one here. And take turns. Try it out. Here I have my class. They love practicing their reading on this. And it's amazing how loud you can hear your voice. And my co-teacher who teaches grade 1, she said for all the kindergartners talking, it gets really difficult for them to hear themselves in the practice. This is a great idea. And my co-teacher also has twin boys in 7th grade. Now they've made 170 of these for teachers at our school. And they also wanted me to say that on the contact sheet, if you want them to make some for you, it'd be 50 baht each. They'll make it for you, they'll deliver it to where you are. I have the contact information, and if you want to sign up, you can, or if you want email or phone them. But there are a couple of entrepreneurial students, this is a good idea. And like I said, they've already made 170 of them. Nate, you use them in your classroom?
Yeah, I also use them.
With the secondary students. So try it out. It speaks for itself. It's a great idea.
That's a great
Fluency.
Yeah, I found with secondary students, middle school students seem to take after them a little bit more than the high school students, but they're good, especially like if I sign reading for at home. Rather than just having them read silently, they can use their pronunciation skills, or even if they're in the classroom, or especially those students who don't speak up, they have a tendency to be really quiet. It helps them to get more confidence in speaking.
Okay, well, were there any other questions about activity 2? Again, it's introducing the rhythm first to a phrase or a word, and then introducing the pronunciation. And again, that helps them to speak in the proper stress patterns. Okay, this next activity is called Battle Spaceship Game. And I got this idea from this internet site. And raise your hand if you've heard of the game Battleships. Okay, some have, and some haven't. So, the idea of the battleships are you have 2 players, and you put down your battleships on the bottom board wherever you want to, whatever pattern. And here you have alphabetical patterns like A through Z or whatever, and then here you have 1 through 9. So you call out a coordinate of like A6. And if the person has a ship there, then you say hit. You hit my ship. And then you put a mark, a red mark showing that's where part of their ship is. And then if they set another coordinate A1 and there's no ship, they say miss. A1 miss. And then you use a white marker here. Well, it's a great idea. From the website, you don't have to say A9, B6. You can use phrases that you want the students to learn. So here's an example. And the rationale. Repetition will help the learners pronounce and memorize language chunks to form sentences. Students will be able to group sentences into chunks and complete sentences. Students will be able to speak the sentences with suprasegmental intonation and stress. So, here's an example using phrases or questions. On this side we have did you, did he, did she, did we, did they. And then down here, go to the beach, get up early, read the story, finish the homework, have a fun time. So if I was trying to find this square, I would ask the question, did you have a fun time? And the other person would look on their paper if they put an X there or not. And they'd say yes if it was a hit, or no if it was a miss. Okay. It takes a little bit, if you've never played before, it takes a little bit to understand it, but once you understand. So you start the game by just putting 10 X's on the top grid wherever you want, and that's where your spaceships are. And then you'll use the bottom part of the grid to ask the phrases or the questions. Did you go to the beach? Here. They didn't have anything, so no. I didn't. Or if they said, did they get up early? And the other person looks, there was an X. So they say, yes, they did. So the first person to find the other person's 10 X's wins the game. So you're trying to find out where their X's are. And here again, introducing literature. This is a story called Frog and Toad Together, a list. Let's go through this. One morning, Toad sat in bed. I have many things to do, he said. I will write them all down on a list so I can remember them. Toad wrote a list on a piece of paper, a list of things to do. Then he wrote, wake up. I have done that, said Toad, and he crossed it out. Then Toad wrote other things on paper. There, said Toad, now my day is all written down. He got out of bed and had something to eat. Then Toad crossed out, eat breakfast. Whoosh. Toad took his clothes out of his closet and put them on. Then he crossed out, get dressed. Whoosh. Toad put the list in his pocket. He opened the door and walked out into the morning. Soon, Toad was at Frog's front door. He took out the list from his pocket and crossed out, go to Frog's house. Whoosh. Toad knocked at the door. Hello, said Frog. Look at my list of things to do, said Toad. Oh, said Frog, that is very nice. Toad said, my list tells me that we will go for a walk. All right, said Frog, I'm ready. Frog and Toad went on a long walk. Then Toad took the list from his pocket again. He crossed out, take a walk with Frog. Just then, there was a strong wind. It blew the list out of Toad's hand. The list flew high into the air. Help, cried Toad. My list is blowing away. What will I do without my list? Hurry, said Frog. We'll run and catch it. No, shouted Toad. I cannot do that. Why not? Asked Frog. Because, wailed Toad, running after my list is not one of the things that I wrote on my list of things to do. Frog ran after the list. He ran over the hills and the swamps, but the list flew on and on. At last, Frog came back to Toad. I'm sorry, gasped Frog, but I could not catch your list. Ah, said Toad. I cannot remember any of the things that were on my list of things to do. I would just have to sit here and do nothing, said Toad. Toad sat and did nothing. Frog sat with him. After a long time, Frog said, Toad, it is getting dark. We should be going to sleep now. Go to sleep, shouted Toad. That was the last thing on my list. Toad wrote on the ground with a stick, go to sleep. Then he crossed it out. Whoosh. There, said Toad. Now my day is all crossed out. I'm glad, said Frog. Then Frog and Toad went right to sleep. So here's the content of the story. and then I made up the grid. You would start by saying, Toad wants frog to, and here's the action, and this is introducing prepositions. So you have eat breakfast next to the pond, in front of the pond. Or Toad wants frog to get dressed behind the pond. Okay, so you put the two parts together when you're asking. So first you put your 10 X's, and then you make the statement, and the partner or your competitor will answer, yes he did, or no he did not. And then you put, if it's yes, you put the X. If it's no, he cannot, you put it in bold. Alright, so this one again took a little bit more explanation. So I'd like you, and this is your handout too. This side is the game, and this side is the information from activities 1 and 2 and the references. And down at the bottom again, I'm not a good salesperson, so I don't have the enthusiasm that was needed to persuade a lot of people. But I think these products do speak for themselves. And there's the contact information. So let's go ahead and pass these around. And just pair up with someone else. We have about 5 minutes. Maybe just try, put 2 X's or something, and just try it out a little bit so you get a taste of what it's like. Maybe more papers than that. So you put your X's at the top. You would mark off 10 X's at the top. And don't let the other person see where you put your X's. Right. Right, exactly. Right. And the first person to guess the 10 of the other person's first wins. So put down your 10, and then one person can start. You just start by saying, Toad wants frog, and then wherever you want to guess. To take a nap behind the pond. And if they say, yes he can, if there's an X, or no he cannot, if it's a space.
Toad wants frogs to Toad wants to get dressed.
Yes, you can.
In front of the pond.
Toad wants to take a nap next to the pond.
Toad wants frogs to stay.
My turn. To the phrases you want them to practice. And here again, you don't need to translate the language because you can pick whatever phrases from whatever language you want to work on. The nice thing about this too, I hadn't thought about it before, but there was one student, sorry, let me have your attention one more moment. There was a student that's probably the lowest in one of my classes, and he got so excited because he won this game.
because it's not a kind of competition where your better students that are better at speaking will always win. There's enough chance but enough strategy that it levels the playing field. So this one who really struggles in class all the time, he hardly ever gets prizes. He won it. He was so excited because it was really the first time he won a game again. So it's a good activity and you might notice already how many times you're saying a phrase over and over. And that's the whole idea, to acquire the language. You need to practice it. So students are practicing, but they're not really feeling like they're running through drills or something. So it's a great activity. So again, just to recap, we had the songs and chants tied in with the literature of Jack and Jill. We had introducing the rhythms of the language first, and I showed that as the doorbell rang. This is the Fluency phone commercial. It works great. Your kids will love it for it. Love it. And we had the Battleship game as well. And there again, you have plenty of variety. So I'm hoping these three activities are open enough that you can apply them to your own situation, but they're controlled enough that you can really do what you want to do with the language in your class. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and attention. If you have any follow-up questions later, you have my email